So what we did, so in the care home that I worked in, or I managed, we approached these things from a very Rogerian ethos. You all know Rogers, what Rogerian means. Rogerian counselling, very client-centred, person-centred. So we would approach people from a very person-centred viewpoint. We would look at what their needs were and try and forget what our needs were as an organisation. And think, well, you know, if we talk about people going out, well, if people want to go out, we need more staff. Okay, let's work to a position where we can get more staff in. And we'd also use UPR, right, unconditional positive regard. We would openly show that we valued people for who they are as a person, regardless of whether they were spitting at us, regardless of whether they'd pulled their curtains down for the 10th time that week, regardless of whether they'd hit somebody. We would show that we valued them as individuals. We wouldn't show them that we valued that behaviour. We wouldn't in any way, shape or form show them that that behaviour was something that we even took that much notice of. But we would show them we valued lots of other behaviours. We actively aimed to empower people. We tried to give power back to people. We tried to support people to be able to make decisions in their own lives. Meaningful decisions, not just whether they wore red socks or blue socks for the day, but what they did. You know, did they get themselves a job? What sort of job was it going to be? Who was going to work with them? Those sorts of things. We try and help them to be as powerful in their own life as possible. We had a clear set of boundaries for shared spaces. There were certain behaviours that were just not appropriate within shared spaces. Things like violent behaviours, sexually aberrant behaviours, those sorts of things were absolutely not appropriate within shared spaces. And we'd be very clear with them as to what sort of behaviours we meant. We wouldn't, however, expect people to make changes like that. Because, like we said, remember we talked about a long history of behaviour or influences on their behaviour has resulted in that. You can't expect people to make changes like that. You just can't. Their room, however, was their own space. We did, however, design the rooms to try and support positive behaviour. What I mean by that is they all had their own bed, they all had their own chest of drawers, they all had their own wardrobe, curtains, blinds and that sort of thing. Now, some of the behaviours that people would exhibit is they'd block the plugs up, or they'd put the plug in, turn the taps on, so that it would flood. That was one thing that somebody used to do at the hospital very often. So we got plunge taps, do you know? Where you push them down and they rise back up again. Alright? And quite a large overflow on it. So it became almost impossible then for someone to do that. So we were trying to support someone to choose not to do that. Alright? We'd also fix the wardrobe would be fixed to the wall. Because sometimes people would tip the wardrobe over. We don't want people to hurt themselves. So we'd fix the wardrobe to the wall. We'd ask them where they want it. They'd say, this is where they want it. That's fine. Right, we'll fix it to the wall. Alright. The drawers, chest of drawers, you couldn't pull them all the way out. You couldn't take them all the way out. Because again, people might use those sorts of things to damage themselves or the environment around them. So we didn't, you know, that's not... You know, everybody's room was like that. It just, you know, they choose that. They choose the colour of the walls. They choose the curtains. They choose the anything that was on the wall, like posters, pictures, all of that sort of thing. They chose it. You know, if they wanted to tear their posters down, that's fine. If they wanted to pull the curtains down, that's fine. But then it would be quite easy to fix them back up again. One thing wasn't available to us at the time, but would have been good to have, and they now do have them, is windows, double glazed windows, where the blind's on the inside. Have you seen those? Between the two panes of glass. That would have been great. We'd still put the curtains up, and people would still probably have taken the curtains down. But the one thing that was a problem with that was until you fix the curtain back up again, that person has no curtain. And so their personal dignity and privacy has been affected. Whereas if you've got this blind that goes between the two things, you can't tear that down. And so if somebody does want to take that down, you can still pop the blind down if they want to get changed.
Sounds like balancing their rights with your responsibility to
That's
keep
right.
them safe.
That's right. And their rights to choose and their rights to behave in their bedroom however they wanted to behave. Like I said, they put a poster up, they like that poster. If they got upset and whatever and tore that poster down, that's fine, it's their poster. What problem? It's their room. Why is that my fault? What? You know, why is that? You know, why is that my concern? It's their room. So we did try and design things in a way that would actually support positive behaviour, but enable them to make choices and those sorts of things. We as a group, and we saw ourselves as a group, and when I say group, I mean staff and service users together. We were all working together in the best interest of the clients. It wasn't like staff and service users. We would make decisions as a group. And service users would have as loud a voice in that group as we would. Met on a weekly basis to discuss what was happening, negotiate boundaries and discuss any transgressions. So if anybody had, you know, stepped over a line or somebody was upset about something, then they could talk about it within the group. Wouldn't make them talk about it, but we would talk about it. And so a lot of the boundaries would be set here. Now, I don't want you to think that it was entirely. There were things, these boundaries. There were boundaries that you know we had to say. No, this is a boundary. I'm sorry. This. We can't go beyond this. All right. So, and for legal reasons, health and safety reasons, but also kind of responsibility to the people around us and things like that. So if somebody said, I'm going to play my music really loud at 4 o'clock in the morning, and we had neighbours around us, we'd say, actually that's not appropriate. You need to think about the surrounding thing. We'll get you a set of earphones. You know, it's about thinking about it differently. It's not just about saying no, it's how can we support you to do that in a way that is within the boundaries that are set by society that you're having to learn. All right? Does that make sense? And each service user would also meet with a key worker to talk through what had happened that week and to work on an ongoing action plan. So each person would have an action plan, and you'd identify and you'd talk to them about what the behaviours were that would need to change and how they would need to change. Be very clear. You have to be very clear. We'd also record on a daily basis how often those behaviours occurred. So, taking this lass who spat, we'd record how many times in that day she had spat. And over a period of, and we could say, well, look, you know, there was a day there, but that day there, you had a really bad day there. There was about, you know, you spat 50 times. What was going on there? And that person could then think about what was happening and why that might be. Right? And so it's supporting the person themselves to make those changes and those choices. I think we're nearly. Okay. I think we're pretty much done, actually. Yeah. Anybody got any questions?